Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dr. Jen, and I'm so pleased you've joined me for today's show and educating yourself as a landlord or about to be a landlord, maybe. Today is a very, very special episode as we're exploring the location-specific tenancy guidelines for Nevada, Pennsylvania, Alberta, Nunavut, Quebec, West Virginia, North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas, and Arizona. This is the summary of those locations that are live right now. I am actually really excited to tell you that because this isn't the actual episode for today. All of those other 10 episodes are already live too. So this is just the summary. So for the states, province, territories I just mentioned, there's a dedicated podcast for each location, and it's right now in the library. If you can't find them on the platform you're listening to, they're on the website mylifeasalandlord.com. Just go to episodes and look for location specific resources and then pick which one you're looking for. Here we go. So in all of our location specific episodes, I go into detail by screen sharing and reviewing all kinds of hyperlinks and resources that I can find in that location, whether it's in the US, Canada, Australia, Europe, wherever it is. I'm just trying to find as many location specific resources to help you as get started as someone who's educating themselves, right? So this is everything I could possibly find, including phone numbers, emails, web pages, association, Facebook groups, so much more. You just never know what's going to come up in these location-specific podcasts. And these are really fun for me to do, and I'm getting better and better at them as we go. And I see all kinds of other things. They pop out. Now, I can't do all the states, province, territories in North America at one time, so try not to kill me here, but I'm doing them over time, and my goal is to have them all done sometime in 2026. I am increasing the library as we go, though, so I'm pretty proud of that, especially as we've got 10 more locations live right now. So in each of my location specific podcasts, they're set up in the exact same way, answering the same four questions. What is that location's basics on their tenancy laws? The second thing is the nuances, what's different, what stands out. Three, some guidance about abandoned items left behind by a tenant. And then four, where to get help. And then at the very end of each episode, I go through what I call my bingo card, which is items that I see most often in these location specific episodes. And so here's a sample of what you can expect from these 10 location specific podcasts coming up. Nevada. Nevada has no rent control. Landlords can increase the rent as often as they want, however much they want, with proper notice, of course, as long as they do not discriminate. Lots of days for eviction notice. There's all kinds of timing. So you've got to make sure you know your timing stuff. 3-day eviction notice for nuances, nuisances, and illegal acts. 5-day notice for lease violation and a notice to quit. 7-day notice for no cause eviction if the lease is ended. 7-day notice for non-payment of rent. 30-day notice to quit. Whew. So landlords in Nevada, make sure you do your homework there. Landlord retaliation in Nevada is very specifically defined as well, but there's no mention of pets at all, including no pet deposit or pet rent. However, landlords in Nevada can require up to 3 months rent for security deposit, or even a surety bond can be used. Really interesting in Nevada. Okay, Pennsylvania. Renter's insurance is mentioned as optional, but very rarely do I see this in tenancy resources, so it's a good idea. Lots of sample letters in Pennsylvania, which is actually very helpful. Also, the term adequate heat in quotes, is mentioned because of the super cold winters in that state. Security deposits in Pennsylvania are very interesting. In the first year, a landlord can hold 2 months' rent as security, but going into the second year, only 1 month rent can be held. If the deposit is over $100, then they have very specific guidelines about holding the deposit, including the funds must be in a separate bank account that is either regulated by Pennsylvania or federal banking authorities, and the landlord must notify the tenant in writing of the name and address and the amount of the deposit held there. Then, in the second year, the interest earned on the tenant's money less a 1% administrative fee must be paid to the tenant annually or on the anniversary of the lease, but the law does not specify how much interest there that the tenant must receive. A lot of moving parts in Pennsylvania. That's okay. Let's move on to Alberta. Alberta specifically defines has fines and ticket costs for landlords failing to meet minimum notices, and the maximum fines are $10,000. There's also specifics on domestic violence definitions, and that includes physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and economic abuse is defined. It doesn't normally, typically when I do these location-specific podcasts, I don't see defined criminal acts like this. That was really interesting in Alberta. You also have 2 banking days from the time the tenant gives the security deposit to get the funds in a trust account. So I hope you're in town when you get it. There's no late fees allowed beyond actual loss and suffering by the landlord due to the late payment of rent, but there is a re-rental fee permitted if it's a fixed lease and it's broken, an early termination from the tenant. Suggested cleaning list for tenants in Alberta is also provided when they depart the unit. That's actually a really good idea. Nunavut. The Canadian territory of Nunavut, if you're going to require a security deposit, then a condition inspection at both move in and move out are required. Otherwise, no condition inspections are required. Rent there can be increased once per year with proper 3-month written notice, but the amount the rent can increase is up to the landlord. There is no rent control in Nunavut. There were no details on what to do with abandoned items also in Nunavut, and both interest a landlord must pay a tenant on their security deposit and the late fee calculation is very technical and depends on the interest rates set by the Bank of Canada deposit account. It was very interesting how that worked, the late fee and the interest on a security deposit. Let's talk about Quebec. There's no grace period for late rent in Quebec. Late fees start the day after rent was due. Many standard quote unquote model forms for notice and lease termination notice, which is a good thing. Quebec's websites were quite confusing, and you're going to see me flip back and forth between the screens. I found them a little bit difficult to navigate when learning about the tenancy laws. However, if I was a landlord in Quebec, I would call the Tribunal Administrative du Logement, TAL, which is the organization that takes care of disputes in Quebec, and at that website you can search the summary of case decisions, which can be very helpful and very educational. Lots of descriptions about abandoned items for Quebec, but namely a landlord must hold abandoned items for 90 days before disposition. It's quite a bit. All right, moving on. West Virginia. Very landlord friendly state West Virginia is. Rent increases at any time for any amount with whatever amount of notice you feel like. Hello, West Virginia is the wild, wild west. Security deposits must be returned to tenants either 45 days after the next tenant moves in or 60 days after the last tenant moves out, whichever is sooner. Lots of resources for landlords in West Virginia, but there are local regulations in certain counties and municipalities. So you want to check out the local applications where your rentals are located in West Virginia. It seems very landlord friendly to me, especially about the rent increases. North Dakota. Leasing land in North Dakota also includes paying royalties on mineral rights to the landlords, including oil royalties and wind energy royalties. I've never seen that before. If you have a tenant who has a felony conviction in North Dakota, you can charge up to 2 months rent as a security deposit. Otherwise, it's a 1-month rent for security deposit. With 30 days notice, a North Dakota landlord can increase a month-to-month tenant's rent any amount. In the event a tenant dies while under a lease agreement in North Dakota, the tenancy laws state the lease is automatically terminated at the end of the following month after the tenant's death. Interesting. Iowa. Iowa has a very interesting clause in it, in its tenancy laws called quote unquote clear and present danger, which I know that's the name of a movie and a book, but clear and present danger. The code provides the landlord the option to terminate the tenancy if the tenant has created or supported a threat constituting a clear and present danger for the health and safety of other tenants, the landlord's employees or agents, or other people within 1,000 feet of the landlord's property. So basically the whole neighborhood. I've never seen clear and present danger before, and that means that they can, I think it's 3 days to quit on this one. That was pretty interesting. Arkansas. If a unit in Arkansas is abandoned by the tenant, any personal property left behind automatically and with no notice automatically becomes property of the landlord at the time of abandonment. No delay, no storage, no notification, nothing. In Arkansas, there are also 2 processes for eviction. One is for mischief and one is for non-payment. The mischief eviction process is called the unlawful detainer procedure, and the non-payment eviction is called the municipal court procedure. Okay, last one, Arizona. In Arizona, if a tenant has access to a pool, the landlord must provide a pool safety notice. And the state of Arizona has defined landlord retaliation and abuse of access. Most notably, the process for a tenant's abandoned personal property is very detailed and specific up to a year after the abandonment. So if you are an Arizona landlord, make sure you educate yourself. in the abandonment laws on that one. Okay, so there you have it. Those are the 10 upcoming episodes. They're very interesting and it gets way wilder than that. But each of my location specific podcasts is set up in the exact same way, answering the same four questions. What are the basics on that location? What are the nuances? Some guidance about abandoned items from a tenant departing that unit, and then where to get help. Then, of course, I go through my bingo card to make sure I've caught all the high points. Again, even after I record all of these tenant location specific episodes, laws can and will change. So you've got to do your own homework. You've got to get exactly in your local area where your rentals are, because even if I had it perfectly right 10 minutes after I record, it can change again. So make sure that you are keeping most current. Now, this is the summary episode, but I will tell you that all of these location specific episodes just got added overnight. So it's not just this episode live, it's 11 episodes live in the library right now. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're either a current landlord, about to be a landlord, or you want to be a landlord in a certain location. Please visit My Life as a Landlord episode library to your specific location and learn more. If you don't see your location yet, just have a little patience. It's on its way. Also, don't forget to subscribe to My Life as a Landlord for more expert advice and real stories from across the rental property world. We're recording this episode today from Powell River, British Columbia, sitting on my boat. Why? Because real estate takes you places. Where do you want real estate to take you? Join me in the next location-specific episode live right now in the library, episode 164, about the great state of Nevada. I'll see you there.